First, a quote. If God did not exist, everything would be permitted. Dostoevsky. What's up, guys and dolls, dudes and dudettes, replicants and skin jobs? This is Talking with Burritos, the podcast that's giving you something to talk about when you decide to go out and buy Blade Runner on DVD. Then you get home and you put the DVD on your player and decide and figure out that, hey, I don't have a 4K DVD player. Now, let's talk about the 4K television. I got a 4K television. I bought a 4K version of Blade Runner, one that Matty P talked me out of recently after I told him, because he said, look here, if you understood this, someone says to you, hey, I'm going to go out and get the highest quality DVD they have of this movie. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to do the same because, we're both fans of Blade Runner. I'm going to do the same as him. He goes out, he buys a DVD. I go out, I hit a wall, a literal wall. I walk in there, I'm looking at the DVD. I'm just going to get this DVD. But then I remember, my television sucks. Like, I can buy Blade Runner and play it on this television. What kind of what kind of crap is this? I can't do it. And so I'm sit there in a Tulsa and I'm like, okay, I'm going to need a new television. If I'm going to buy this very expensive movie, then I'm going to get a very good DVD player. I mean, a very good television. I need a television. I need 4Ks. I need the 4K because I'm going to get the 4K DVD player because it was understood that we're going to get the highest quality DVD of Blade Runner. So I stand there for a while, inspecting the televisions. I'm like, I need a television. But then I'm thinking, in the back of my head, why don't buy a television, Jerry? Because if you do, she will win. Now, some of you have probably already heard this story because I've talked about it before. But I'm just going to add a little bit more spice to it for the podcast. Well, she comes in. Like, I'll tell you, for about a year now or so, maybe even longer, our television has been degrading. Pixels have been degrading. And I just recently found out as I took it down that this is a plasma. We got this television back in 2007 or something like that. So it's an old television. We have since been left in the dust as far as technology is concerned, as far as the television. Because my thing was, if it isn't broke, let's not replace it. Because we paid a pretty penny for this television way back when. So it starts degrading. And then recently, and then to the point where there's a line down the right side of the television. There's a big black line, but it comes and goes. It's intermittent. And it comes to a point one day this year, I was like, you know what? We should get another television. Wife says, nah, I don't think we should. It doesn't bother me. It's like, okay, well, if it doesn't bother you, then it doesn't bother me, lady. And so I'll go as long as you can. And so we're going. And so that was back in, I think, before Christmas. Even before, I think September, October, maybe October. Now, fast forward to we were in Costco about 2 weeks ago. She comes in. We walk into Costco and see this television, this beautiful television. And she's like, I think we need a new television. Almost freaking threw that television at her. Now, the seed has been planted. She put the seed in my head. I want a television. But me and my stubbornness, I'm like, no. I'm not going to get a new television because you said you can go as far as long as you can with that black line down your television. I'm not going to get a new one. But like I said, seed has been planted. So a week later, I'm in there buying Blade Runner. And I'm like, I can't buy this DVD 4K and then not buy the television. But then I'm talking to the salesman. He's like, do you have a 4K on DVD player? I'm like, no. He said, then you might as well just go with the standard version. Or if you're going to upgrade later on, then you can get this version. And so then you still have the 4K version of Blade Runner. I'm like, that's a good thing. But I'm like, Matty P's going to buy the Blade Runner 4K. So I might as well get the Blade Runner 4K so we can talk about it and discuss how awesome the 4K Blade Runner DVD is. So yeah, I buy it. And I buy the television. I replace the television. Then I was going to hold out. I'm not going to put this television up. But then I put the television up. Whatever. So I have the 4K. And I bought the damn DVD. I bought everything that I have. I just don't have a damn 4K player now. I do have the top of the line DVD. But to sum the story up, I go to work and I say, Matt, what version copy did you get that night when you said you were going to go pick it up? He said, oh, I just got the Blu-ray player, the 2D, the HD copy. I'm like, why did you get the more expensive? You said you were going to get the most expensive copy. He said, I'm not going to get that. I don't need the 4K. Then he goes into telling me what's right about 4K and what's not right. And they do this. And if it's not 4K, then you don't need it. I'm like, you should have told me that shit before because I wouldn't have bought the damn 4K version. I could have saved myself $10. That's the end of that story. Okay, now let's go into talking. Let's go into actual podcast. Talking with Burrito. Let's go with, Blade Runner. I started out with that quote, "If God Did Not Exist" quote by Dostoevsky, because I don't know, it's just something that struck me. I was watching something, I don't know what it was, but it hit me. It's like, everything will be permitted. Think about that. Oh, powerful. Think about if you didn't have religion in that section, when you consider technology advancing and life beyond life as we know it, the organic life. What if it becomes technical and when life forms itself in the means of like robots or sentience, or if we start duplicating? What if we, in the sense as creators, it all goes into that. That's why I referenced that. But it's Dostoevsky. Go look it up and just search for meaning within this context. That's what I think Blade Runner centers around. A lot of that, just in those few words, it sums it up for me, what Blade Runner is all about. This current Blade Runner 2049, it continues the conversation began like 35 years ago with an even deeper questioning into the morality to creating life. But this time it introduced another anecdotal. What happens when life finds a way? We hear that phrase often now, don't we? Since Jeff Goldblum stuttered those words in the first Jurassic Park, the question of life becoming into existence outside of the control of its creator is not popular. It's not just a popular quote, but a think well consideration. If we humans are to be the next creators of life, then we must take the responsibility of allowing life to live, breathe and think without interference. Free will, as it was given to us by, God in the Garden of Eden, two horny teenagers ate a damned apple and cursed men and women for years to come with hard work and labor for both genders. Damn, again, I reference Bible stuff. But, you just can't. It's everywhere. Whatever. You can reference it because it's in regards. It's like Shakespeare. It shows up everywhere. Okay, but before you nod off, let's consider that this is all wrapped up in one big old existential burrito. In this movie, the Tyrell Corporation, in Blade Runner, the movie, the Tyrell Corporation created androids known as replicants. The replicants began to think and act for themselves. Thought would then lead to decisive actions beyond programmed instructions. It's like you're meant to obey, but then they stopped obeying. So they went against their masters, and then they revolted on the off-world colony. And that's when Batty, a replicant, and his crew conscientiously escaped enslavement from that off-world colony. And the Tyrell Company sent trackers known as Blade Runners to eradicate these defectors, their creations, its children, its sinners. Oh, snap. I just brought it back. Okay, although throughout the first Blade Runner movie, scenarios popped up which gave life to replicants who were believed to not possess natural emotion. In many scenes of this movie, the replicants showcase more sympathy and humanity than their superior species, Homo sapiens. Skin jobs, as they were known, or stereotyped, were never accepted as people. They were pets, slaves, produced to serve. And this only capitulated the fear of the product after the Blackout of 2022. But if you haven't watched it, watch Blackout 2022. It's an anime produced by, a la Matrix style in between those movies when they did that, as a visual representation of the events preceding Blade Runner 2049. It basically surrounds a band of renegade replicants in conjunction with human sympathizers who plan to detonate an electric pulse which cuts the power to the off-world colonies and Earth. And this event erases the names and locations of every replicant within the databases used by the Tyrell Corporation to monitor their creations and track them down and ultimately retire them for good. However, there are still copies under the ownership of Neander Wallace, played by Jared Leto. And I say Jared Leto because I love his Joker. My boy, because 30 Seconds Marks, still love his music. Y'all might think you're crazy, but, it's called method acting. Neander Wallace, he's played by Jared Leto, who, following the fallout of 2019 and 2022, he absolved the Tyrell Corporation and pursued his own interest in creating sentient life. Now, knowledge beholden only to Wallace and to a few others plays a crucial role in 2049, and that kicks off Kay's investigation into the Tyrell Corporation's past transgressions. Shinichiro Watanabe, creator of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, produced the anime short Blade Runner 2022, blending his style of art with the futuristic psychology of Akira and Ghost in the Shell. Such a subplot within the movie would have derailed the storyline and slowed things down more than this nearly 3-hour freaking movie needed. 2022 worked simply as exposition for the film without using a supplemental plot line unnecessary to the theatrical release. Many people overlook this 13-minute video, but if you have the time now, then please pause this podcast and go watch. Or if you're on the website page, then just press play on the YouTube player below. I have it right there. Just press play. I love 2002 because, it's just his use of jazz, of music, and Cowboy Bebop, he used jazz music and he used hip hop music and Samurai Champloo. The music heavily influences the art, and Shinichiro Watanabe mends them together so perfectly into a story episode or movie that is like just impeccably audacious. And yes, I did say and write those words. I don't know how they animate martial arts so well, but they do so, and it is a wonderful compliment to the painstaking work involved in creating like a scene animators or anyone who has ever attempted to animate a character on pages of a notebook or the corners of a notepad can appreciate. Also, there are 3 more, and if you have not watched them yet, please do now. I'll wait in your pause. There's one called Nowhere to Run, where it stars that first character who initially starts out the movie, where Kay is seeking another skin job, another replicant, played by Dave Bautista. He goes there, and it's called Nowhere to Run. And Dawn. Dawn is basically a precursor to the Nexus Dawn, where you're introduced to Neander Wallace and his new vision of life and creating and solving this problem of the world's population dying. How are you going to get people to work if you don't have any people to work? How are you going to get people to work on these off-world colonies? Well, he has a solution, and it's creating replicants, taking that already existing formula, and then tweaking it just a little bit. Blade Runner 2014 is definitely a burrito. One aspect of this film is the seamless transition from the first movie. 35 years after Deckard and Rachel escaped into hiding, Earth looks horribly dystopic. Way worse than depicted in the first film. Like, after the Blackout, this world of 2049 is bleaker and even less hopeful of salvation. Replicants are feared rather than discussed. The population knows of their presence, living, breathing, consorting with the likes as humans. The problem is who and not the where amongst them do they live. Replicants live in fear of discovery just as humans fear their resurfacing. I can only assume that it stems from the first replicant escape in 2019 when Batty and his boys and gals wreaked havoc upon anyone they met, on their way to Earth or when they were on Earth. From the 35 years, and so much has happened between the first movie and now in 2014 that almost doesn't work story-wise. I can only assume that it happened from the Replicants' escape of 2019 with Batty and his crew, and how much havoc they wreaked until Decker stopped most of their lives, or until their lives just ended, that last scene with Batty. And the fear that now you can't track them, that there's no one tracking them, and that they have no actual link to them, and that they're just living amongst the human race as perpetrators. It really adds a sense of fear to this genre of individuals who would like nothing better than them to all be extinguished. The blackout actually made it worse for human life to thrive, as replicants of off-worlds were used to help cultivate food for the dying dying species. Any way you splice it, people live in fear of replicants, and the Blade Runner is as much a needed but less desired mediator to the chaos. Both films show us a different side of the replicant. They weren't all baddies. Much of the violence they inflict upon humans is from the fear of being captured and or retired. The newer models of the Nexus Dawn variety are beings built to serve and obey longer than their preceding models. There was no room for error with this model. Neander Wallace believed so much in his creation that he sought what any other creator might do, more ways to make his creations better. Kay, in search of, replicant rebels, ultimately does this investigation for him, seemingly by proxy. Kay, who is a replicant, who works as a tracker for the LAPD, serves and obeys his lieutenant and protects only when instructed. Kay's mission is to track down the MacGuffin that will bring down the premise that Earth is safe from replicants. Great at his job, Kay represents what it's like for a replicant to live as a human in virtual solitude. With no physical being as a companion, Kay finds comfort in a holographic program akin to our Siri or Alexa. Her name is Joy. She is a virtual assistant programmed to make life more effortless and, in this instance, less lonely. In these scenes with Kay and Joy, we feel his loneliness, which is harder to consider because Kay is not human and therefore has no feelings of longing or emotion. They're part of a program, unreal. There is this beautiful scene in the movie where all of this is conveyed, and it's utterly sad. It's towards the end. That is, if you believe Kay and his emotions are real. Gosling's somber, melancholic gaze illustrates so perfectly the feelings of a replicant, which is blankness, nothing. Like Decker, Kay discovers there is more to fear than the preservation of replicants, a secret his superior Lieutenant Joshi intends to quell, and Neander Wallace, the creator of Nexus Dawn, wants to cultivate. The transition from 2019 to 2049 was almost seamless due to the ability of Villanueva and his production team to use sound and art similar to that used in the Blade Runner's dystopian society. Villanueva used Ridley Scott's film as a template and sampled from it the color palette and fantastic spews of light and advanced technology to help achieve a feeling of emptiness in a world so full of colorless despair. The first scene of the farmhouse with Bautista used the dark as Ridley Scott had in Decker's apartment, kind of noirish, but then with a hint of yellow light. It was a great throwback to the original film and a perfect setup for what was to be admired in the sequel. Villanueva may have had the vision, but cinematographer Roger Deakins had the lens to capture the picture. This guy has been in the business for a long time. Accredited to his pedigree are movies Shawshank Redemption, Fargo, A Beautiful Mind, Skyfall. This dude truly continues to amaze us with, spectacular imagery. And if there's anything that I can boast for this movie that can intrigue you to go and actually, pay attention and watch it, it's just the visual stunningness of it all. It is utterly just beautiful. It's very beautiful. For me, the best of shots of the movie was the opening sequence when Kay arrives to the farmland outside the city, and also the soaring image of Kay inside his cruiser as he moves over the desolate cityscape of Los Angeles. The many tenements, which through peaks of narrow openings give a viewer a look into a city remembered in 2019. We see the change. Earth is dead, plagued by extreme cold and the threat of rising water. This is truly a world afflicted by more despair than the world displayed in 2019. 35 years after the first movie, the technology has evolved beyond needs of its people. Loneliness and survival seems to be the impetus for technological advances. Survival for people with money. In a multicultural metropolitan like Los Angeles, it's not surprising that the keep-to-yourself mentality wouldn't surpass the need for everyone to work together for the common good of each other. Commerce is only substantial to the individual. We see this in many third world countries today, the significance of the marketplace, a place where you go buy and trade goods for money or product. Ghost in the Shell has a similar statehood in its interpretation of a futuristic Japan overwhelmed by immigration and suppressed economic growth, at the behest of the more powerful and rich technological centers. Despair just plagued the city and plagued Los Angeles. There's no really coming back for that. So you have to think, like, in such a way, in such a city, if the replicants aren't really causing harm, why go after them and eradicate them? You think anybody else with a soul would look into that, would go after them, see that they're not harming anyone, that they just want to live, and then just leave them alone. But no, they sent, like, replicants, they sent these people out to go kill them, eradicate them. But for what? That's what really didn't, like, mend well for me. I just questioned why kill them if they weren't a threat? It's just because they were different models, or do they pose a threat? Do they have a longevity problem? Whereas once they hit a certain age, which was wiped out with the Nexus Dawn, they were meant to last longer than, like, the 4 years of the previous movie, 2019, the baddie version. So the Nexus replicants, they last much longer than those. So maybe just because they were older models, or because it's possible that, from 2019, that's why they want to extinguish the older models, because they maybe had that flaw, but I'm not sure. It's a question. But from that older model, you get the storyline here. So, Blade Runner, would you say it bombed, though? I wouldn't say, okay, if you think about money-wise, the money, yes, bombed. But it was very popular among the people who wanted to see it. How about that to say? People who wanted to see it, who actually waited for it, the cult following, they enjoyed it. But, yes, the box office didn't really see much, of an uptick there. It was much, and it was kind of weird how it's just following that trajectory of the first movie, where that movie did not do well either when it was released. It didn't do well, but it just picked up a cult following later. And I hope that happens with this movie, especially with the technology that we have now, big screen televisions, 4K DVD players. so people can still immerse themselves and witness this movie as it should be seen. Just very loud and very big. I might download the video from my phone, the download copy, because, it's in my possession. I like to have things in my pocket sometimes. Sometimes I'll just listen to a movie because that's just cool. It's not like, when you put things on, it's just background noise. Sometimes I like doing that too. And even if it's on my phone, might not watch it, which is kind of be weird on a tiny screen, but I have done it before and I am not against it. But so yes, first Blade Runner was neither a critical success or a box office hit. Most of its praise came from film junkies and theorists like myself, people who saw the film as not only great but also found the premise worth keeping alive in conversation. 2019, like 2049, are visionary masterpieces, hands down. Both films will be appreciated by those who can muster the attention level to sit down, enjoy, watch, and think later. Or listen to this podcast, and then I will comment on it, and we can start a conversation there. If you have any questions, you want to talk to anyone about this movie after just watching it, call me up. I'll be right here. I will answer that, and I will help you out. But why doesn't a movie like this that is so popular and critically acclaimed? Was it critically acclaimed? I would say it had a lot of positive reviews. Yes, this is what I like to think. Certain movies come out and they're just freaking atrocious, just bad. But then you have a movie like this that has so much artistic integrity that you wonder why it bombed so much or so hard. Why didn't it make as much money? Why didn't it? Because it cost as much as maybe as a Star Wars. But why didn't it? Why didn't it? Hit that plateau? Why wasn't it a draw to people? I'm not sure. So we have to answer the question: are audiences lazy? A movie like Blade Runner 2000, a movie like 2049 will go unappreciated. We knew that. It's going to go unappreciated by the masses. But does that mean we, as audiences, are lazy? I would say yes. Yes, it does. Lazy and unpredictable. Judging the audience these days is similar to judging the needs of a child who will not stop crying. You try one thing with the child and then it doesn't work. It might work for the moment, but repeat that one thing over and over again and the kid will catch on. And then they become disinterested. And then they'll just keep crying. So today's audiences doesn't want to think as much as we want to watch. We're in the age of instant gratification. And a film like Blade Runner 2049 will not appeal to most moviegoers because it's a kind of slow simmer. And then you gulp it all down at the end. You're supposed to taste the movie before you actually really enjoy it. But you enjoy it as it goes along. Sort of like a fine wine. So you're taking sips, but you're supposed to savor it. Keep it in your mouth for a little bit, and then you swallow it. That's what Blade Runner is to me, especially the art on screen. This film is a slow burner. It's a 2-hour and 30-minute exercise in patience, but it pays off at the end. I felt the same of Mother, a film that gives you all the images you need to make the decision for yourself as to what type of film you want it to be. Open-ended themes are the precipice upon which good conversation is built. And that's what makes a movie like Blade Runner or Mother great works of art. Does art have a place in movies? If you consider this notion, every film made is a work of art. No matter how well made the film is, it is a work of art. The problem is that people don't see them that way. And truthfully, neither do I. Filmmaking in Hollywood is more concentrated on making a successful film than making a more interesting movie. It's the nature of the business. This goes back to the instant gratification. Open the movie with a question or a problem and solve it for me, please, because my head hurts. The difficulty filmmakers have today is balancing art with entertainment. Disney is pretty much known nowadays for releasing directors from Marvel projects, and it's not because they were bad directors, but because of creative differences. To be told how to perform your art is difficult for many people to agree with, but seeing that this is the nature of the business, roll a chicken. Until you get some industry cred like Wheaton, Abrams, Spielberg, or Villanueva, filmmakers are pretty much stuck to doing the status quo, at least for major studios. Blade Runner bombed at the box office. The climate of Hollywood and the audience interest isn't right for something this good. Consider the importance of this film today, 35 years after the first movie debuted, flopped, and then surged. Is Decker a replicant? Hell, I don't know. And that's the beauty of the film. I can ponder that scenario to the day I die. I can go for either yay or nay. In fact, I may add it to this to the list of films I want to be played on my deathbed. Sure, cinephiles, kids who dabble into film history, love the original movie and came out to watch the 2049 in earnest. However, it's not about them. 2049 needed to attract a new audience, more mass appeal from the curious rather than the expectant. The question, now, are we tired of dystopian movies or tired of remakes and sequels past their due? Tell me in the comments to this episode at talkingwithburritos.com/ Blade Runner. So I'll give you some movies to consider, though. Movies like Hunger Games, Maze Runner, World War Z, Walking Dead, Fifth Wave, Divergent, The Giver. A lot of those. You think a lot of those movies are, modern day books, novels. So you think that the young people would be a little bit more interested in Blade Runner, since most of the films catering to the likes of their reading habits centered around some sort of dystopian society. So talk about dystopian societies. I'm gonna give you some reasons with this, that, and other news at how we are headed towards a dystopian society. First of all, in August, Facebook, they had to shut down an AI experiment because bots formed their own language and began communicating with one another. The robots had been instructed to work out how to negotiate between themselves and improve their bartering as they went along. But they were told not to use comprehensive English, allowing them to create their own shorthand language, according to researchers. Now, robots cannot be made human, but they can learn. If you think about that, it's like kind of freaky. And this is not the only story. I think Google and somebody else had another story out there as well where they programmed something. They programmed bots, and they said they gave them simple instructions. You do this, figure out that, and they formed their own language. And then eventually we had to shut it down. Why? Out of fear? But that's like Frankenstein or Geppetto. We're shutting down our creations. Why? Because we fear that they live. And that's what I'm talking about with Blade Runner. Now, the replicants here, they're genetically, in the Blade Runner series, they're genetically changed. They're not robots, but they were made, they were created, they were manufactured to do a certain thing, and then to do one thing and then not to do other things. So like reproduce. They weren't supposed to reproduce, but then how did something reproduce, and why is K looking for it? And is it K? We don't know. So it's one of those things where you look at it, it's like, okay, we're creating these things, but we want to restrict them from communicating or forming any type of errant habits that aren't conducive to the experiment at hand. So if we tell them to, hey, talk about this, don't use English, but then they start using a different language, then who's at fault here? It's not them. It's not the robot. It's not the computer. It's what we're telling them. We're giving them to instructions. So if you're not going to allow it to flourish or to grow, then why give it those instructions and why create it rather than to want to suppress it? Have you seen iRobot? Yes, I watch a lot of movies, and that's the nature of this podcast, people. Have you seen iRobot when those robots just went crazy because they had a little chip malfunction? It can happen. Self-driving cars. I just saw a little clip, a news story. A Tesla, robot-driven, robot-controlled, or self-driving Tesla. Bam! Rails into this damn truck. Just the entire damn front of the hood is in this truck. So it's good that no one got hurt because it's a big old truck. So no one got hurt. However, it is interesting to see these things happening and occurring and wondering what happens when or if and how. We want to create the technology, but then if it starts to control us, or it starts to communicate upon within itself, then we want to stop it. It just seems like a kind of slippery slope there for me. Another reason why we're heading toward dystopian society. Because if we're creating robots and all these robots, we're not going to know. We don't know what to do with them. We really don't. We are horrible at taking something at face value and then using it for its value rather than its abilities. I'll say this because, okay, there's this headline, Sex Robot Frenzy. Horny fans so excited they groped interactive love doll until it breaks. I'm going to say keywords. Robots. Heavily soiled. Fluid. I can't make this shit up. Man-made to fulfill male's needs. I don't understand. Okay, now they have a new version of robots. People, there's this man out there, or this couple, I think. Actually, this is one man, but I think his wife helps him. They make sex robots, but they make them so that they can better associate with their owner. They can better relate with their owner, meaning he is making them so that they can do things to really enhance the owner's experience. So like the doll talks and it does other things. It's made out of a very synthetic skin that almost seems kind of real, I think they said. But one of the attributes is he made this robot so that it would, oh my goodness, self-lubricate itself. And I just want to say that. And so when I read this article and I read that these guys are just groping it, and it's like I read these keywords that they had out in bold, like heavily soiled. And so like basically he broke the robot because they kept touching on the damn thing, stimulating the robot, causing it to excrete a substance, a lubricant, and then they broke the damn robot. That's why I'm saying we're headed to a dystopian society, because we don't know what to do with the robots that we create. We are never going to do that. Because why? First of all, if you go back, if we create or duplicate anything, sort of like humans, even if we learn how to do that, what are we going to use them for? I read a book. It's called Underground Airlines. And it was about people, it was about slavery, how it did not exist. How slavery still existed during this time of age, in 17. It still exists. But it's about these people who actually want to try to start manufacturing slaves. Found a way to create human life, duplicate human life. And the South, because people were defecting to the North where it's safe, they wanted more slaves because that made their businesses more profitable. And so they wanted to create more slaves, breed more slaves. And that's what I'm saying what would happen to us, because I don't think we're ready for that sort of technology, that sort of power, because I think we would abuse it. I think it would be like Westworld all over again, where we would do silly, cool things maybe like that, where we have like robot theme parks, but it's like, oh, look, you have a robot theme park, but you can make love to this one. And it would be centered around sex and slavery. I think that we would use the robots for anything other than that. Either using it for their personal gains, personal means, basically using them for what they're not supposed to be used for. You know, if we start creating them, and why do we always create them in the likes of women? It's subjecting. Because why? Only horny ass men are going to buy these damn things. And they'll be quick to buy them too. This person's robot race to create the first android robot to what? Use as a toy? It makes no sense. How about the first android robot to send into outer space so that we don't have to create a cryogenic freezer? But we can put a robot into space and have them go out. Now that seems almost right. But if it might turn south for you, if you Michael Fassbender and Alien Covenant, and he has other means. Okay, he determines that he has a soul. One of the things as well, I want to talk about Blade Runner and having a soul and memories, and the importance that plays in this. But I'll continue with this thought that even in Westworld, I was watching a few episodes of that one. And oh my goodness, it's just horrible what we might do. And if you see in that series how the robots, even a glitch in language, once they start talking to one another and they start figuring out their own code, they can manipulate their own code. And what's going to stop them from doing that? So what I'm saying is what I've said all along. Stop tipping over robots. All you damn people and all those damn videos they post when they go to those robot conventions, and you see the little robots doing stupid things, you're making funny videos on them. I'm saying you better stop that right now, because those robots are watching. Those little computers, they're storing all that information. They're going to come back and get you. But let's go into Wired and let's talk about, do memories have a soul? Let's get Wired in. Well, we have this inventor, Hiroshi Ishiguro. He builds robots. This is an article in Wired. I will have a link for it. It's called are we ready for robot affection? This goes in line with what I was talking about before, in creating robots and why we would create them. First of all, we think about this. It's like, okay, we could create them secure our loneliness. We've already created robots to perform slave labor of sorts, factories, all that stuff. A lot of those things are robotic now. That's why a lot of people lose their jobs due to machinery, robots that they have doing the jobs for them, because they could do it faster. Hiroshi Ishiguro, he builds robots. He's one of the first people to build like an android robot and have it talk to him. He's doing it for the science of it all. First built his first robot replica of like his daughter, and then later on he started building more robots, and he built a robot replicant of himself, because it's all about this thing and about hubris and ageism and watching yourself age and get older. And with a robot, he was able to do that and keep himself young, because he's very kind of vain in that sense, where he gets like a lot of he's had plastic surgery so he can look like his robot, so he can look young, stay as young as his robot. It's kind of weird, but he creates robots, but a lot of it he does for science because he wants to know. And his idea is to try to bring compassion to the android. He wants to be able to create an android robot that will be able to reciprocate the actions of emotions with someone. So if he does so, he completes this, he puts it on the line, it would give people who are, in a sense, lonely, feeling lonely, give them a companion in life, so that they can have someone within their lives that they could talk to, that they could converse with, cohabitate with, but also gives them emotional responses that they need to not think as the robot as a robot. And there was one episode in Black Mirror, I think it was season 2, Domhnall Gleeson, he was in it, and he dies in this episode, and then she finds a way through technology and through this experiment, this new invention from this company, that she could replicate him, that she could get him in different forms. It first started as then it just gravitated to like, hey, we could put him in a body that's similar to the living person that you once knew. And so, she uses him for those means. She tries to use him for comfort. She tries to use him for all those different things. But when he couldn't reciprocate those emotional reactions before from her human counterpart, then she began to detest the robot replicant. And so that's what Hiroshi Ishiguro is trying to do. He's trying to replicate the human emotion, the human side of the android. So to make an android feel, he could maybe, use androids to perform other duties. Like, let's say you have an android nurse, android attendant in a nursing facility who could go around and help people and stuff, and maybe take drinks and talk to them and converse, be able to laugh and giggle and know how to show that emotion back. Or if someone's crying, give them a hug. It's very, I would say, avant-garde. His technology is on par, is up to standards. It's very much there, but he just hasn't been able to get to that point, to getting an android to actually show that emotion. And so if you look at Ishiguro and this other person who's creating these sex robots, they're only totally different scales. Or are they? One is doing it for the pleasure of man and giving man, so man or woman can buy this robot and seek pleasure. Certain things within the robot that the robot does can simulate that sort of sexual pleasure that you might want and need in a person. But what about affection? That's the main thing. I think it's the separation there between affection and just wanting to fulfill a sexual need. But they're both creating at the same time. I would say Ishiguro's, his technology is a lot better because he's trying to create robots that talk and speak our language. When I don't necessarily think making a robot moan is actually trying to teach it a language. There's a lot more going. I say look up that article. I will link it to the show notes of this podcast episode. Hey, what else do I have about this? Also, another thing that's gonna bring the Earth to shit. Scientists, they have also created a skin to help camouflage robots. Now, I don't have to speak this out loud because the first thing that should have came to your mind is the first thing I was thinking. I shouldn't have to speak it. I really shouldn't have to speak the words, but I'm thinking T2 and the T5000. You think about these robots who were able to they were chrome though, right? They were chrome and they were able to change their skin, change their appearance based on whatever manipulation they wanted to replicate. But camouflage skin, freaking weird. So I'm just thinking super soldiers. And now you have super soldier robots going out there where you have them in the desert or somewhere. It's like, oh, he actually blends into the dirt better than our camouflage gear. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, they have this synthetic stuff. It's all mushy, but yeah, it's supposed to be able to camouflage, give you camouflage skin. Or maybe if you give the robot camouflage skin, it's like the robot interior, then you give it a camouflage skin, then it can just mimic skin and not necessarily be skin, but it can mimic it. Yeah. And another thing, I'm going to just sidebar this one. I'm going to bring this up. Do humans have a soul? A lot of this movie focuses on memories. And for Ghost in the Shell, which was always a conundrum for me, even that TV show, in the movies, it's like, do humans, our memories, evidence of a soul? I really like this movie too because it's existing like that. Because think about Kate in that instance. Has no memories, has nothing. He even says it when he's sitting down in Joshi's, the lieutenant's office. I have no memories. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't relate that to anything. So how can I feel about this one thing that you're trying to bring up to me right now? Human, like, our memories, is that evidence of a soul? That's a real good conundrum. And I hate to think about it in a bad way, but sometimes, like, Alzheimer's patients, if you see someone deteriorating over time, I've seen it in my grandmother, where it's like she started losing her memory. And I only saw her that one time when I came down for my father's funeral. And it's like, I know you. And I was like, I know you too. There's something so heartbreaking about that. Or if you watch, like, hell, The Notebook or something, you see, like, weird how you can actually consider that to be a thought, a true idea that our memories are evidence of soul. It's like everything that we remember is what we live. Our first drink, our first experience, our first this, our first day of school, all that stuff is all boiled up in one. All those memories all boiled up. And then you say you lose them. You lose them, and then what? Then what is it? Just your shell. You just become the shell. But you lost all memories of life. It's so weird to think about that. And so I'm thinking about Chappie and some of these other movies, robot movies concerning robots and memory. And if you can put memories inside a robot, does that mean that it has a soul? Which was so soul crushing in this movie with Kay and the trials and the thought process he had to go through, where you have this synthetic being, this person who believes that I am nobody, I am nothing. That's what you are. You are a replicant. You are something that was made. You do not exist. But then to have that idea that, maybe I do exist. And to have that really, they had that one moment where he really believes. Not kind of spoiler, but you see it boiled within him. And he's like, and that it all comes out, but it's more of like an expression of anger and maybe happiness at the same time. Good acting job, Ryan Gosling on that one, but it's like you never know. And so that's what Ghost in the Shell like really grapples with. It's like memories and evidence of a soul. And then I spoke a long time ago about Chappie when that came out. It's like, what if we could make robots and then transfer ourselves into the robots? And if you watch that one Junipero of Black Mirror, and it's like, okay, what if the old woman is dying, but yet they could take the memories and put it into a place where they can live longer, because it's within their memories that their soul exists. Oh my goodness, people, it is all there. Talking with burritos, that's a wrap, but not a burritos. I'm getting all sad and simple and whatever here. So go listen to that. Go think about those points that I just brought up right now about this movie, and just consider them. Just like I said before, you don't have to believe in this. You could just consider it, talk about it, flesh it out. See what happens. I'm willing to talk about people with anything. Even religion, I talk to people about. I'm willing to exercise a little bit of thought process there. I'm not just like, oh, now you believe in this, you suck. No, I like to think about these things because I like to talk about them, and I think we all should do that. So, and that's why people make movies. That's why writers write movies. It's because they want you to think about these things. They just don't want to just put it out there. Some movies, yes. Jumanji, you could just put it out there because I'm pretty sure the damn game isn't going to come to life. But what if it did? That's what I like to explore. That's been Talking with Burritos for this episode. Join me for next time. You're going to start some Oscars, and most likely I will watch The Shape of Water and finally complete the 4-part series that I had with Creature Features. Thank you for listening. And hey, go to the website and enjoy some more blogs and stuff. And watch the Oscars, I guess. Bye.